Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Lunch and Learn. I'm Lauren Smith with the International Franchise Association, and we have a great 30 minutes lined up for you. Before we begin, I would like to remind everyone that we are recording today's webinar and will make it available later this evening on community.franchise.org. If you have any questions for today's speakers, please add them to the chat box and they will be addressed toward the end. Today's topic is building your franchise development team for success, and it is brought to us by the Entrepreneur Source. Here to provide today's discussion is Eric Missbrenner, Franchise Development Manager at the Entrepreneur Source, and Dana Besbris, Training and Coaching Specialist at the Entrepreneur Source. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to the Entrepreneur Source for sponsoring today's Lunch and Learn. I'll go ahead and turn things over to you.
Thank you, Lauren. Good day, everyone. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with us today. We're very excited you're here. My name is Dana Besbris, and I'm the Training and Coaching Specialist at the Entrepreneur Source. The Entrepreneur Source consists of coaches who assist their clients in exploring career ownership opportunities in the franchise space. We are not only partnered with hundreds of franchises around the country, but we are one ourselves. In 2024, the Entrepreneur Source celebrates 40 years of having been able to help thousands of people find self-sufficiency through the world of franchising. In our 40 years, we've not only learned what it takes to become a successful franchisor through our own experience, we've worked with hundreds of well-run franchise systems. We're using this knowledge to help empower other franchisors to excel in becoming industry-leading brands. The Entrepreneur Source is proud to be launching ZorCoach, an education and coaching organization whose mission is to equip franchisors with the tools they need to succeed. The following is a small excerpt of ZorCoach. Although the successful development of a franchise ultimately depends on the collective efforts of the entire organization and its franchisees, today we'll focus specifically on the franchise development team. To that end, I'm extremely proud to introduce you to Eric Missbrenner, who is the Franchise Development Manager at the Entrepreneur Source. Eric has many years' experience in franchise sales and has been leading the Entrepreneur Source franchise development team during one of the most successful periods in our history. Hello, Eric.
Hello, Dana, and thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome all. Just a brief heads up, you're going to see the word award quite a bit in this presentation. So I'd like to give you a quick explanation about our terminology. At TES, the Entrepreneur Source, we don't sell franchises, we actually award franchises to qualified partners. Now, this involves a mindset shift from the traditional close a deal sales mentality. Try to come from a place of education instead of treating a franchise candidate as a customer. Remember that the relationship between a franchisor and a franchisee is a symbiotic one. Success is intertwined. Things that you want to focus on, mutual fit, right? Ensuring that any candidate that he or she would potentially fit your culture and core values, that they would be fully committed to following your proven system. By focusing on quality over quantity, especially long-term, over time, it's going to lead to a stronger item 19, better validation, less overall long-term challenges and problems for various departments of your company. I know this can be counterintuitive to the old school sales mentality, but the proof is in the long-term results and overall health of your franchise. Not only is it crucial to know the type of candidates you want to award a franchise to, it's equally important to identify the type of folks that you don't want to franchise to. So the first thing that you want to focus on, and you may have one already if you've been established for a while, but again, it's something that you always want to update and make sure is staying current, is your award experience. You have discussions, presentations, assessments, applications, validation calls, registrations, FDDs, franchise agreements, resale agreements. There's a whole lot of stuff going on behind the scenes at all times. So you need to have a written step-by-step process for absolutely all of this. And while you're putting together this award experience, think about what you can incorporate into this experience that will not only educate, but excite the franchise prospects about your business model, with the goal being to help keep them excited enough to get to the finish line, gathering enough information along the way for both parties to make an educated decision as to proceed with each other. Each candidate is going to have boxes that they're looking to check off. Absolutely everybody that you work with, right? It could be a specific income or revenue that they're looking to generate over time, maybe a certain work-life balance that they're yearning for, or a combination of factors oftentimes. How does your business model check off those boxes? Determine what's going to be required of your developer to help them get the candidate to each next step. Then, once you have this award experience formalized, make sure that you record this step-by-step process and always, again, keep this up to date. An up-to-date written process is critical. It's also extremely useful at various times when onboarding new developers and maybe looking at some of the metrics and realizing that somebody is struggling at a specific stage. You can go back and circle back around and reinforce certain things through that. So on top of making sure that you have the step-by-step process, also make sure that they have all the tools and resources that they need to be successful. This is going to include things like CRM software, guides, scripts, email templates, product demos, and potentially more. So now that you've got your award experience recorded step-by-step, A to Z, make sure that the entire team has a crystal clear understanding of every stage of the experience and train them collectively and individually. Role-playing conversations could be great with this, right? Being able to share with them typical questions that candidates would ask, maybe some curveballs that they'll occasionally throw, and talk through what those conversations would entail. Practice delivering presentations back and forth. These are exercises that, again, you can go back to if your metrics show any drop-offs at any specific stages. So frequently go back to this process, make improvements along, always keep this evergreen. It's going to evolve as your franchise continues to grow. When it comes to goals for the franchise development team, any goals that you set for the franchise team should be SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Although consistent growth is always going to be your primary objective, being realistic in setting those teams' targets and goals is very important. Remember that this is going to involve a mutual fit between the franchisor and the franchisee candidate. So make sure that you give some leeway to turn away candidates who are potentially forfeits. Make sure that your expectations with your team are always fair and that you're consistent in your feedback. And also make sure that you're setting quarterly as well as annual goals for your team, both individually and again, collectively as a team. So let's just pause for a second and take a moment to discuss arguably the most valuable tool to any franchise development team, the CRM system. A CRM stores all of your candidate information. You can save email templates for easy, efficient use, track candidates at any stage of the process. And one of the most valuable resources that a CRM provides is the data that it's tracking and storing. Through the data that's being tracked within a CRM, you can detect patterns where there's drop-offs individually or collectively, and again, course correct as needed. You can see percentages of candidates that are going from one stage to the next and detect if there's any inconsistencies in those patterns. Now, I know that most, if not all of you, use the CRM already, but how many of you have really looked into all the data that can be pulled from within? Every CRM platform gets occasional updates, and although it's always easy to stick with what's working or what's already being used, there's almost assuredly more data being stored in your CRM that you don't even know about, some of which could be new key metrics for you and your team. So I challenge each and every one of you to go into that CRM and do a little bit of digging in terms of what kind of data you can get from there and determine what your key metrics will be going forward and make sure to track those consistently. Now here on the screen, you'll see just some common metrics, right? Franchise growth management metrics can be used to set goals for the franchise development team. They can be used to track KPIs or key performance indicators. Metrics can also be used to identify areas where the team may be struggling. So these that you see, they're just the tip of the iceberg, some of the more common metrics. Glancing at this list, I can tell you that the first four are often going to be mission critical for any organization. Some of these may or may not apply to you. The last one is one that I personally feel everyone underestimates the importance of. But again, not all of these are going to apply to you. You want to identify and consistently track the key metrics as they pertain to your team's specific goals and updating your team on their progress along the way. So accountability. Accountability will begin and end with communication. Keep everyone up to speed as to the progress of their established goals. Have the team giving updates to you consistently and collectively with each other on their top candidates in weekly meetings. In these weekly meetings, you can do additional things, helping each other out. Things like sharing best practices, building new relationships with franchise candidates, talking about how to build that rapport, brainstorming and developing new strategies, handling obstacles and challenges as a team that one individual on the team might encounter, working through those complex situations together by sharing information and coordinating efforts, and offering feedback and suggestions on presentation delivery and approach. Every quarter, make sure to hold a review, right? To discuss that individual teammates' metrics and goals. Let your franchise developers know how they're performing consistently, and also, very importantly, how they can continuously improve on those results. Making sure that you have an accountable team ensures that there's no confusion as to what roles or what the goals are that are being set, ensures that everybody has a clear understanding as to his or her key objectives, as well as what it takes to accomplish them. Now, this may sound cheesy, I know, but always remember to celebrate your team. Individual, team, and company wins should always be celebrated. You can have happy hours, team games. There's even third-party companies you can bring in to host virtual parties that we've used in the past. Nowadays, I know a lot of folks are working remotely. That doesn't mean that you don't get the chance to celebrate. It should be something that you should look forward to and incorporate every chance you get. However you choose to go about it, make sure that your team always feels valued. Remember that it's their job not only to educate your candidates, but also to generate that excitement for the candidates that are looking at your franchise. There is absolutely no better way to show excitement when talking about a company than when you feel genuinely proud to be a part of it yourself. Now, this should not be limited just to your team. The entire company should participate in these celebrations. Every department within the franchise has its own mission, and every successful mission should be celebrated. Dana, I'm going to kick it on over to you so you can explain a little bit about the value of continuous education and assessments.
Thanks, Eric. It's important to keep your franchise developers sharp and engaged. One of the best ways to do this is through a continuous education plan. The key benefits of having a plan are that your franchise developers will be better equipped to award more franchises. That's probably one of the main reasons you're all here today, right? Your franchise developers will be able to understand the needs of their clients and provide them with the best possible solutions. Sometimes that's going to mean not moving forward with someone in the award process when there's a mismatch in culture or skill set. Making sure you do that can lead to improved franchisee success, satisfaction, and loyalty to the brand. And the candidates you turn away may actually appreciate your decision and integrity. Franchise developers who feel valued and are given opportunities to learn and grow are more likely to be happy and stay with you. This can lead to reduced turnover, and I'm sure you all know how important that is, as it often takes a new franchise developer months to make a successful award. So you need to develop your continuous education plan. You're going to do that by assessing the needs of your franchise development team. You need to make sure you understand what skills and knowledge they need to be successful in their position. Make sure you are staying on top of the latest franchise development techniques, tools, technologies, anything that can help your team as you grow. And as you become aware of those things, make sure you're informing the team about them. You definitely want to look at all the resources you have in terms of training. So look for training courses or workshops and other learning opportunities. Send them to conferences. But also don't forget that they often need a little bit more education about what's happening inside of your own building, right? So consider bringing in people from other departments to speak about updates or new tools, and make sure that franchise development team is aware of what's happening in the rest of the organization. Make sure your franchise developers understand any assessments you use to help award franchises. If you are not using any assessments, consider choosing one and educating your franchise developers on it. These assessments can help your franchise developers connect with the candidates quicker and communicate clearer, increasing the chances for a successful award. Some of the available options are the DISC assessment, which measures how a person does what they do. The DISC profile creates a language around observable behavior, which in turn improves communication, engagement, and self-development. Driving forces is an assessment that measures why a person does what they do. It defines and identifies what motivates people. It measures the motivation and strength behind behaviors using 6 different motivators. The Kolbe Index A helps you understand how you naturally approach tasks and work, or said differently, how you get things done when striving. The Gallup Strength Finder, which is now called the Clifton Strengths, discovers what you naturally do best and helps you learn how to develop your greatest talents into strengths. The Predictive Index helps identify the range of behaviors that may be necessary for a franchisee to succeed in that particular role, and then measures your candidate against those behaviors. Working Genius is a newer assessment that helps people discover their natural gift and thrive in their work and life. When people are better able to understand the types of work that bring them more energy and fulfillment, they can be more self-aware, more productive, and more successful. And the last one there, Zoracle Profiles, created by Rebecca Monet, is a franchise-specific solution which integrates 7 statistically validated sciences. Their spot-on science determines compatibility with your system and predicts performance. At the Entrepreneur Source, we use the DISC assessment to help us communicate in the style that best fits our candidates. For those unfamiliar with DISC, it measures dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. Each candidate's unique profile gives us clues into their preferred style. If they're outgoing or more introverted, if they are task-oriented or people-oriented, if they want to move quickly through information or slowly, if they want lots of details or just the headlines, and the pace at which they are likely to make decisions. We offer continuous training on DISC to our franchise development team to help them become experts at adapting their communication style to their franchise candidates. So for example, if one of our developers is highly outgoing and not particularly detail-oriented, and they see in their candidate's DISC profile that they are introverted and fond of details, it is the responsibility of the franchise developer to dial back that big personality, slow down, and make sure to focus on the details they might naturally gloss over. Because the franchise developer adapts their behavior to the candidate will better understand the information presented and will connect better with the franchise developer, increasing the likelihood of a successful outcome. Back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Dana. So now we'll talk a little bit about working with coaches, brokers, consultants. Something you need to know. Franchisors who can effectively share their story, demonstrate how they can be a key part of achieving clients' goals are the ones that will typically see the most success. Now, I've worked within several franchise development teams, both within and outside of TES. I've collaborated with, at the very least, probably a dozen of the key referral sources out there. And what I've learned from that experience is that they're all a little bit unique in terms of how they can go about working with franchisors and the services that they offer. Now, I'm not saying that they're necessarily any better or worse than others. I obviously have a biased opinion on this particular topic, but one may simply fit you better than others. So when partnering up with any source for qualified candidates, always consider the style of the coach, broker, or consultant group. Whether they're coaches, consultants, or brokers, whoever you decide to work with, understand that they are going to be a little bit different. Some are going to incorporate different strategies and methodologies, but partner with that group that really fits your goals and really strive towards developing those relationships. The name of the game when you're working with groups like this really is building the relationships, building the trust, building the rapport, right? So the proper level of communication, collaboration, building rapport, that's going to be defining your success when working with these outside referral sources. Develop those individual relationships within their community. Have your team present your franchise business model to their people every chance you get, whether it's in person or virtual. Sometimes I've even seen franchisors dedicate specific developers to each source of referrals. Think of it like having a dedicated point person for each group. It would then be the primary responsibility of that point person to ensure that the organization is properly taken care of at all times, whether it's bringing them up to speed on any new tools or resources that your franchise may add over time, or simply keeping those relationships strong within the group on an individual level. So although it may require an additional investment from just the membership, there's going to be time, money. It takes time to go to some of these events around the country, but they're a lot of fun. They're exciting and exhausting at the same time. But I can't recommend it enough to make sure to attend those conferences. Put faces to names, eat, drink, and be merry, and get to know each other and learn how to communicate and collaborate better than you did before. Invest the time to develop those relationships and ensure that you stay top of mind within that network. So we're coming up at the end here. We've got a little bit of time for questions, but I just want to thank everybody for spending this time with us. Hopefully you were able to learn or at least reinforce one thing that will prove to be very beneficial to your team. And also thank you to the IFA, not only for having us today, but for all the amazing things that you do for the franchise community at large. So we'll wrap this up here and we'll see. Dana, I don't know if we have any questions that you'd like to throw out there that we can answer.
Yeah, Eric, we've got a couple of questions here. The first one is, what format does the Entrepreneur Source use for documenting their award process? So is it a Word document, a checklist? How do you document your process?
Our process is documented via a checklist. It's really a global report that we have access to. So multiple tabs, the primary tab being a step-by-step breakdown of everything that the developer needs to talk through, any presentations that need to be made to get them to the next stage. In addition, within that spreadsheet and that global program, we also have access to scheduling, knowing who's going to be going to validation calls, who's going to be going through FDD reviews, who's going to be attending our Meet the Team Day, which is what we call our Discovery Day. So yes, it's an organized checklist that everybody maintains daily and everybody has access to.
Great. The next question we have is, how do you evaluate when your award process needs to be updated?
Usually it goes back to those key metrics. So again, when you start looking at the data that's being pulled from these CRMs, you're going to see patterns, consistencies, team averages, right? Whether it's the time from getting to the first stage in that first introductory phone call to the signing of a franchise agreement, whether it's percentages of people that are moving from one stage to the other, you can track all that. You can see what your team averages are. You can also see if an individual strays off course, if their numbers are not in alignment with everybody else, which typically means that there's something that's either being said or sometimes something that's not being said in the previous call or in that call that is changing things, changing the path. So you can go back and again, do some role playing, practice, rehearse, and make sure that there's consistency between the messaging of your developers and course correct whatever's going on with that particular individual.
Excellent. We got a question about assessments. Should we give assessments to current high-performing franchisees to get a blueprint for candidates to live up to?
I've done it before. I think it's a good idea. So Zoracle is actually, for example, a really good assessment that would be in alignment with that. That is going to take the typical answers that your top franchisees would provide, and that is really the answers that it's looking for with every candidate that's taking it. So we'll match them against who your top franchisees are. One thing that I want to stress about assessments, though, whatever assessments you use, remember that they're never meant to be a qualifying or disqualifying tool. One thing that you're going to realize is some of the more successful franchise owners that you have don't always follow whatever that blueprint is you think it has, right? A lot of franchises, for example, think high D, high I. That's the type of franchisee I need. Somebody that's going to be competitive, a go-getter, that's going to go out there and get in front of people, that's not shy, that's extremely extroverted, that can make friends and communicate with anybody. And then they go back and look at their top performers in their franchise, only to realize some of those top people are the exact opposite. Remember that people can adapt, right? So just because you're a talkative person, just because you're a get to the bottom line kind of person doesn't mean you don't have the ability to adapt and speak through details. So use those things as a guide to understand what the perceived strengths and weaknesses and behavioral traits may be of your candidate, but don't use that as a pass-fail tool mechanism, if that makes sense.
Great, Eric. Thank you. A direct question for you, Eric. Are you using AI in conjunction with your CRM? And if so, can you talk through what this looks like?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm not tech savvy enough to really know all the implications of how we're utilizing AI. I can say that it's still early for us. We're kind of in sponge mode when it comes to AI. We are implementing it in different ways. Our IT folks, our marketing teams are using it in various ways, but I think at this point we're still trying to figure out what the optimal way is to use some of those different tools. So, my opinion on AI is that it can be so valuable to really help people get their jobs done. At the same time, there's a human element to what we do in franchising, and I don't think you can replace some of that with AI, right? You need to have the heart to do what we do. So I think it's important to utilize the AI as best you can as a supplementary tool without letting it kind of dominate how things progress.
Great. Thanks, Eric. It looks like we have time for one more. Do you evaluate your franchise developers purely on the numbers?
Absolutely not. Again, going back to the mindset shift, right? Don't get me wrong. It's great to put up big numbers. Everybody's going to celebrate that. Growth is what we're all looking for, shooting for, anticipating, and navigating towards. But there's controlled growth, right? And you want to make sure that again, that it's quality over quantity. So somebody who just has that buy or die mentality, that's employing the old school sales tactics, right? Rush them to that point, right, where they're signing the agreements. Time kills deals. There's certain things that do apply to some degree, I guess, from sales backgrounds, but a lot of it, and I can say this for myself, having come from over 20 years of sales in various industries, a lot of my sales experience I had to throw away when I got into franchising. I had to kind of discard that stuff and ultimately do what was right for the franchise and the candidate. This isn't always just about your numbers and getting as many franchisees as you can. It's always going to be about getting the right franchisees in your system.
Great. There are a few other questions that we will look to address offline here today. So I want to thank everybody for their time, and want to pass it back to Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric and Dana. This is excellent content and excellent feedback from all of you. We really do appreciate it. Again, this webinar was recorded, and along with the presentation deck will appear on our website early this evening. You'll be able to find that at community.franchise.org. Thank you very much again to Eric, Dana, and the Entrepreneur Source team. And again, thank you to everyone for tuning in. We hope to see you in just 10 days in Phoenix for our annual convention. So make sure to register if you haven't done so already. You can do that over at franchise.org. We hope you have a great rest of your day and stay safe and healthy. Bye.